E911Talk podcast, episode 70, for Saturday, February 11th, 2012.
Welcome to this edition of E911Talk with your host,
hold
Mark.
on. Spider, hold on a second.
All right.
This is going to be for the folks over in Europe, so we've got to change this to 112.
That's cool, but let's get some funky Euro music as well. Welcome to this edition of 112 Talk with your host, Mark Fletcher, Avaya's product manager for public safety solutions. Now, here's Fletch.
This week, the podcast is a little bit off schedule, and we've changed the name of the podcast just a little bit to be consistent with the 11th of February, which is 112 Day in the European Union countries. Now, you may remember the guest blog by Gary Machado a few months back talking about the European Emergency Number Association, or ENA. As it turns out, emergency numbers in Europe are not universal. Many countries have separate numbers for separate services, and there was very little coordination between countries. In fact, today, there are more than 60 emergency numbers that all coexist in the European Union. Now, just as we try to ingrain 911 in our children's minds at an early age today, the 112 Foundation also takes steps to promote the use of 112 across the 27 countries of the EU. Unfortunately, only a minority, about 25% of citizens, actually know the European emergency number 112 in their area. To help promote 112, the 112 Foundation works on the creation of a set of promotional and educational materials such as posters, stickers, children's books, videos, and audio recordings, as well as video games and songs. In fact, the cool Euro music that we're using for this podcast is actually the official ENA 112 song. ENA is also working towards next-generation emergency services with their NG11 Project. Using NG911 as a base guideline, ENA has established a long-term definition working group to review the work done here in the U.S. and make the appropriate changes for European-specific issues. They experience many of the same problems that we experience here in the U.S., such as hoax calls, calls from uninitiated mobile phones, and location information from large PBX or MLTS systems. Fortunately, much of the work that we're doing here has direct applicability in the EU countries. The major difference between both infrastructures is that in North America, we have fairly good cooperation between state agencies at a federal level. In the EU, political country boundaries present a greater challenge when discussing interoperability and technology. Later this year, you can look forward to some additional guest blogs from our friends and colleagues in Europe, and I encourage you to follow their activities on Twitter at 112_SOS. And be sure to take advantage of all the key resources at www.112foundation.eu as well as www.ena.org. Make sure your colleagues overseas understand the importance of emergency call processing within PBX and MLTS systems, and I urge you to do your part raising awareness of the 112 emergency number in the European Union member countries.
You've been listening to the E911Talk podcast with your host, Mark Fletcher, product line manager for emergency services at Avaya. E911Talk is a weekly podcast available on sites like this, as well as iTunes, and is available free of charge. If you have any comments or questions, you can email Fletch at fletcherm@avaya.com. That's Fletcher, the letter M, at avaya.com. Be sure to listen in next week for more informative topics on E911.